D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Adam Vingan, David Janes here with you. Derek Mason has the day off. He'll be back tomorrow. He went to the mountains this weekend. Hopefully he made it out of the mountains. I guess we'll find out tomorrow, Willie, if Derek escaped the mountains. But Derek Mason off today. He'll be back with us tomorrow. We are live at Bridgestone Arena, where the Predators will host the San Jose Sharks. Puck drop at 7, pregame at 6, right here on 102.5 The Game. And Willie, stop me if you've heard this one before. It's a big game for the local professional hockey team.
The next biggest game of the season. 2 left. Well, hopefully, the job tonight is to make Thursday the biggest game of the season.
Indeed. Let's set the stage for tonight's game. The Predators coming off of a 2-1 win on the weekend against the Minnesota Wild. Steven Stamkos scored his 40th goal of the season, which is remarkable in and of itself, considering how far back Steven Stamkos was in late November. 4 goals in his first 22 games, I believe. He reaches 40 once again in his soon-to-be Hall of Fame career. Matthew Wood scores as well. Predators win 2-1. They are 4-1-1 in the month of April. And yet, they are on the outside looking in of the playoffs with 2 games left. The LA Kings have a 1-point lead in the wild card race in the Western Conference with a game in hand. And the Predators' tragic number, Willie Donick, is 4. So any combination of points gained by the Predators, or lost by the Predators, I should say, gained by the opponent, that's all she would write for the Nashville Predators. So let's set the stage for tonight. The Predators need to win, of course. The Predators can be eliminated from playoff contention tonight if they lose in regulation to the San Jose Sharks and the LA Kings defeat the Seattle Kraken in any fashion. The good news is it's been a long, long time since the San Jose Sharks defeated the Nashville Predators. 15 consecutive wins for Nashville versus San Jose, which is the longest active streak versus one franchise in the NHL. So again, the Predators to live to fight another day. Here's what cannot happen. They cannot lose in regulation, and the Kings cannot win in any fashion. If those 2 things happen, the Predators will be eliminated tonight. But Willie, as the saying has been for the team, win the week. This is the ultimate win the week for the Predators.
Win the week and get some help. I think it's pretty simple. They really need to win these 2 games and then hope things fall right. And so I think it's just about winning tonight. They'll be playing and finish tonight before the Kings game is over. So, and there is still the slight possibility that they could get in over Anaheim because they have the head-to-head with Anaheim on Thursday. And so that's something that we won't know until after the games tomorrow. I think by tomorrow night when the games are over, you'll have a pretty clear picture of what's going to happen because the Kings play tonight and tomorrow. Anaheim plays their second-to-last game tomorrow, and you'll know exactly what's going on. But really, none of it matters unless the Predators win tonight against the Sharks, who are still mathematically alive, but it is on life support. And the Predators, if they lose tonight, they'll be on life support at best.
By the way, the Vancouver Canucks did the Predators a solid last night, defeating the Anaheim Ducks 4-3 in overtime. I believe the Ducks could have clinched a playoff spot with a win in that game. But the league worst Canucks doing the Predators a favor, beating the Ducks in overtime. So the Ducks only get 1 point.
Is it too much to ask them for another favor tomorrow night?
Well,
the Canucks have actually won 2 games, the last 2. The Kraken won their last game, although they announced today that Jared McCann, they're one of their better goal scorers. He's their best goal scorer since they got the franchise. They play against the Kings. So you need these teams to step up and play their best, even though they're out of the mix.
The Ducks, by the way, will clinch a playoff berth if the Sharks defeat the Predators in any fashion. Regulation, overtime, shootout, it doesn't matter. If the Sharks defeat the Predators tonight, the Ducks will clinch a playoff spot despite not playing tonight. Again, the Predators will be eliminated if they lose to the Sharks, in regulation, and the Kings defeat the Kraken in any fashion. But as I just said, it's been like 6 years since the San Jose Sharks have defeated the Nashville Predators. That isn't to say it couldn't happen tonight, but the Predators have had their way with the Sharks in recent years, including the last time these two teams played here, where the Predators scored 5 times on the first 7 shots, if I recall correctly, Willie. So we'll see what happens there. But the Predators, again, all they've got to do is take care of their own business. They've got to win to stay alive tonight against the Sharks. But Willie, the biggest story, and we've been talking about it for a little while now, but the biggest story regarding the Predators, and I would argue the biggest story currently ongoing in Nashville sports, is Justus Annunen. He is expected to start tonight. Andrew Burnett called it a quote-unquote game time decision, but he is expected to start tonight. He was in the starter's crease at morning skate, and if he does start as expected, this will be his 3rd start in 4 games when you need every win possible, and UC Saros is healthy. We're going to go over this in a little bit. It's incredibly rare that UC Saros does not make consecutive starts when healthy. We will discuss that in a little bit, but Annunen has certainly deserved it. Over his past 2 games, he has saved a grand total of 8.7 goals above expected. He has been outstanding. He's been outstanding since the Olympic break, but the past week, he has been arguably the top goaltender in the NHL. So that to me is a big story, Willie Donick, that Annunen getting the call, expected to get the call tonight, 3 starts in 4 games, and UC Saros is available, but it looks like the Predators are riding the hot hand.
And I think, like I've said all along, you've got 2 good choices. However, if you just take a look, I just don't think they could ignore how well Annunen has played. He has taken it to another level. UC Saros is 6-2-2 in his last 10 starts. He's played well, but Annunen has been better. He's just been clearly better statistically. And I think, as we discussed the night before the Utah game, where you were saying it might be time to put him in there, I think the biggest barrier was that UC Saros over time has done so much to become the man, and he wasn't playing poorly. If he was playing poorly, I do think they would have probably gone to Annunen earlier. But it just got to that point where Annunen has played so well you can't ignore it. They went with him on Saturday, and he played another really, really good game, particularly in the 3rd period where Minnesota switched the light on and really made a run at the Predators. They outshot Nashville 11-1 in the 3rd period after Nashville really dominated the first 2 periods, which was a great sign. But the way Annunen shut the door and the way the mojo is going for him, I mean, it would make sense that they would go back to him again tonight.
Again, Andrew Burnett called it a game time decision. We do have that clip of Andrew Burnett this morning following morning skate talking about his goaltending situation. Here's what Burnett had to say.
Big decision with goaltending tonight. Are you going with Big Juice tonight?
Game time decision, yeah.
I mean, is that going with that decision? Is it like you consider how well Big Juice has played the last 2 games, or is it more about matchups?
Yeah, I mean, I think both guys have played extremely well. They're the reason we're fighting every day. And regardless who's in net, we feel really comfortable.
But when you're watching from the bench and you're looking for signs that your goalie is hot and feeling it, like what are certain things that you kind of look for that signify to you that, yeah, he's on?
Yeah, I think how they track the puck, I think is a big thing. It's a feel you get when you're watching that they're sharp, that they're on it, they're not too busy. Those are things kind of stick out for me. I'm not a goalie connoisseur whatsoever. I kind of rely on Benny and that department to make sure how sharp our guys are, and they break it down much more than I do, and they know much more than I do. So I rely on those guys heavily for decisions like we're in right now.
That was Andrew Burnett this morning following morning skate. Again, he is calling the starter a game time decision, but all signs point to Annunen getting the call in net once again.
And you can tell how difficult it is to make the move that they look like they'll probably make based on what we saw at morning skate. And again, they haven't officially said it, but 99 times, well, I don't know, 95 times out of 100, when you put a guy in the starter's crease, that's the guy that's going to start. Right. And I don't think Andrew Brunette wanted to get into a very long discussion. He wants tonight to be about a game that they absolutely have to win. He didn't want to have to answer 12 questions about why this guy or that guy. But you can sense part of the reason he did that is because it's so difficult to do.
It is a sensitive subject just because of
And this has happened in hockey before, right? This has happened many times. Like when the Capitals won the Stanley Cup in 2018, they went with a guy that'll be, I don't know if he's in there tonight or not for Seattle, but Philip Grubauer was the young understudy. Braden Holtby was the established Vezina kind of winner.
Right.
And they went with Grubauer to start the playoffs.
First 2 games of the playoffs, I believe the Capitals lost both of those games in overtime.
Yep.
They were down 2-0 in the series. Holtby comes back in, and of course, the rest is history. By the way, the coach who made that decision, Barry Trotz, will be on the program tonight at 5 o'clock. He'll be live here at Barrel House. And I was going to ask him about that because it's a similar situation.
Well, and go back even more recent. Was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago where Sergei Bobrovsky was slumping? Florida, before they were Florida Panthers.
Alex Lyon, right?
Alex Lyon rescued
Bobrovsky.
The Panthers and got them into the playoffs.
I believe that was the year they upset the Bruins in the first round.
Yes.
So that would have been 2023.
Right.
Yes.
So that was, the Panthers had been a really good team. Obviously, they'd been the President's Trophy winner the year before, but they were barely going to get into the playoffs. And had they not had a great lift from Alex Lyon down the stretch, they wouldn't have even made it to the playoffs. He got him in there, and eventually it was Bobrovsky that took the reins back during the playoffs and took them to the top. So there are examples. This does happen. It's just when it happens at the end of the season, I think it makes it that much more difficult to make the tough call.
Well, you're seeing
but statistically, the numbers just are eye-popping for Justus Annunen. It kind of happened gradually, but especially the last couple of starts, you just can't ignore how well he's playing.
It's happening with the team that the Predators are chasing for that final playoff spot. Anton Forsberg was named the NHL's first star of the week. He's been killing it for the Kings, ahead of Darcy Kemper, who is the starting goaltender for the LA Kings.
That's another great example. And if you recall, after the Predators beat the Kings in that 8-round shootout, Kemper was not good at the start of that game, and he ended up getting a vote of confidence. He got the next start against Toronto and gave up 6, and they still won the game in overtime. And only then did they go to Forsberg. And since then, Forsberg has basically taken over. He played a great game against the Predators. A couple of goals saved above expected in that game.
Shut out the Oilers over the weekend.
Yes. So they're riding the hot hand there.
So Annunen, this is not a unique case. It's happening right now with the team the Predators are chasing for the final playoff spot. And as Willie and I broke down, it's happened in recent years as well. But still, it is a bit of a sensitive subject just because of how important UC Saros has been to this organization, how long he's been the unquestioned starter. And we're getting ahead of ourselves here. But we'll see what happens this week. We'll see what happens if the Predators make the playoffs. If the Predators make the playoffs, I said last week that, hey, game 1, it's going to be UC Saros. If Annunen continues to play this way and the Predators make the playoffs, I might have to leave the door ajar just a bit. But again, we're getting ahead of ourselves. The Predators have to make the playoffs first. One texter on our text line driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com says, I like the chances over the Ducks than over the Kings. The Kings' schedule is too easy to expect a 3-point drop. As with the Ducks, you need the Wild to beat them and Nashville to beat them to finish the year. Another texter says, forget about the Kings. Our path is the Ducks. After yesterday, the Preds have a clear 3-step plan, Willie, a clear 3-step plan to get in that does not involve LA. First, the Predators beat the Sharks tonight. 2, Anaheim loses in regulation in Minnesota tomorrow. 3, the Predators beat Anaheim in regulation on Thursday, and we are in. Texter saying we, not me. But that's that texter's 3-point plan to get into the playoffs without the LA Kings. So we'll see what happens there.
Got to win tonight. That's really what it's about. We were going through it all this morning, just like everybody else is, and it is a little complicated But I think it's just the bottom line. If you don't win tonight, it's not worth even the trouble of calculating all these different things that happen. But you could feel very differently tomorrow if you win tonight and you get one break. The Seattle Kraken, if they can come up with a big performance tonight, put some pressure on LA, have them feeling a little bit of tension. Oh, we thought we had this. You never know. You never know what can happen.
615.
And that whole thing about who starts game one, boy, you'd love to be able to make that decision, as tough as it would be, right?
Yes. We'll see what happens this week. The Predators have 2 games left. They're not in the playoffs right now. A lot can change between now and the end of the week. 615-737-1025. We'll take your thoughts on the Predators in action tonight here at Bridgestone Arena against the San Jose Sharks. Puck drop at 7, pregame at 6, right here on 1025 The Game. The Predators going for their 16th consecutive win against the San Jose Sharks. That is the longest active winning streak by one franchise versus another franchise in the NHL. 615-737-1025. But coming up next, first of all, we want your reaction to the decision that the Predators are going or are expected to go with Justus Annunen tonight over UC Saros. If that is the case, and we expect it to be the case, that will be 3 starts in 4 games for Annunen with Saros healthy and available. So we want your reaction. 615-737-1025. But also, with the help of the NHL Stats and Information Department and friend of the show, Jacob Underwood, I have found recent instances of UC Saros not starting consecutive games. I'm going to tell you how long it's been since he did not make consecutive starts when available. Spoiler alert, it's been a minute. 615-737-1025. Speaking of the Predators, tomorrow is the final Smashville Live of the season. 1025 The Game will be broadcasting live from Brewhouse South in Cool Springs at 6 p.m. Meet your Predators players up close and personal. You can also get autographs and pictures. Tomorrow's guests for the final edition of Smashville Live. Those guests are Fedor Svechkov and Joachim Kemmel. That is Fedor Svechkov and Joachim Kemmel tomorrow night, Brewhouse South in Cool Springs at 6. Smashville Live is presented by Gary Force Acura, Willie Donick, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
Bruno, you had some big decisions today, and you went with Justus Annunen and net. Can you take us through, what was the process in that, and how excited were you to see how big he came up today?
Well, he's been playing exceptional. I mean, both guys have really since the break. I think all the underlying numbers are pretty remarkable. And they've kind of kept us in this fight. So he played really well coming back from a trip, and, we thought we'd go with the hot hand.
That was Andrew Burnett on Saturday after Justus Annunen was in net for the Predators' 2-1 win against the Minnesota Wild. And all signs point to Annunen getting the start again tonight against the Sharks over UC Saros. This would be Annunen's third start in 4 games. Let's get your reaction, 615-737-1025. Let's start with Jerry in Springfield on our phone line. Jerry, thank you for calling and waiting. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm definitely for starting Big Juice. I don't understand why they didn't start him after he got the shutout. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. You go with the hot goalie. I mean, that's it. I don't care if Saros is making all that money. Big Juice lets up 4 goals. Saros is right back in net. They should start him until he plays bad. That's
Thank
the way
you for
it
the
should
call.
always.
Thank you for the call, Jerry. Didn't mean to step on you there. I was surprised, Willie. Maybe I shouldn't have been. I was surprised when they went back to Saros on Thursday in Utah because Annunen had the shutout in Anaheim. Again, he had the best performance analytically Annunen did against Anaheim in terms of goals saved above expected in the history of Sportlogic, which has been tracking these things since the 2016-17 season. That's regular season and playoffs. So as I said the other day, think of the best goalie who's played in the NHL over the past 10 years. Sergei Bobrovsky, Connor Hellebuck, Carey Price, you name it. Igor Shesterkin. Justus Annunen had a better performance in that one game than any of them ever had in one game. And look, a goalie can have an unbelievable game, but Annunen has been playing very well since the Olympic break. There are only 2 goaltenders in the NHL, Willie, who have saved more goals than expected than Annunen since the Olympic break. He has saved 18.3 goals above expected since the Olympic break. And I do want to make one thing clear as well, because we were talking about this the other day, Willie, with Connor Newt when we were at 5 Iron Golf in Midtown. I want to make one thing clear. UC Saros has been playing well since the Olympic break. This is not a situation where UC Saros has struggled mightily since the Olympic break. He has been playing well. Annunen has been playing great. That's the only difference. So I do think that might get lost in this conversation, Willie, that although Annunen has been playing outstanding hockey, Saros has been quite good too. He just hasn't been sensational the way that Annunen has been.
I think that's a very unique part of this equation here. I think it would be a lot easier to, as the caller said, ride the hot hand if you had one goalie that was ice cold and the other was red hot. They both, you heard Andrew Burnett say it, they've both been exceptional since the Olympic break. And remember, this is a team that traded 4 veterans at the trade deadline right after the Olympic break. And then, they've had some guys banged up. They lost Nick Hague. They were missing Roman Josi for a game. The only games that Saros has lost in regulation was one, the Montreal game, where I don't know if Superman could have stopped Montreal that day. They were just way, way better than the Predators. They were all over them that game. Montreal was playing great, just too fast for them. And I thought that was the same case in Utah the other night, where UC Saros got a quality start. I'm not sure if Annunen would have made a difference in that game. Roman Josi and Nick Hague both missed that game. Hague will be out again tonight, it appears. But, they didn't have Josi. It was at the end of the trip. Utah was fresh. I didn't think Saros played a bad game. So I think that also has made it a tricky thing to navigate. But each time, each day, and each week that's gone on, you've got a guy that's playing good and a guy that's playing great. And I think right now, with everything on the line, they've decided to go with the guy that's playing great, it appears.
There have been 61 goaltenders who have appeared in at least 5 games since the Olympics. 61. Annunen is third in goal save above expected at 18.3. Saros is eighth at 12.1. So he's been playing like a top 10 goalie as well since the Olympics. Annunen has just been out of his mind. So to your point, it does make it harder. But I also just want to make sure that people know that although Saros hasn't had the incredible individual performances that Annunen's had recently, he has been quietly solid since the Olympic break. I mean, let's put it bluntly. If not for the two of these goaltenders, the Predators would be nowhere near this playoff race right now. If someone were to ask me, hey, Adam, what percentage would you give the goaltenders for the fact that the Predators are in the playoff race with 2 games left in the final week of the regular season? I wouldn't go as far as to say 100%, but I'd probably go like 80 at least.
I think it's the first and second reasons why they've stayed in it is they have elevated everybody else. And then the next reason, I think you look at a group of veterans that just have a will to win that's pretty admirable. Ryan O'Reilly and Steven Stamkos and Roman Josi, Philip Forsberg. I just admire the heck out of their stubbornness to say, you know what, they wrote us off at Thanksgiving. Then they wrote us off again at the trade deadline, and they still shook their head and said, no, we're still going to play. We're still going to play to win and try to make it. And so whatever happens in these last couple of games, whether they get in or out, I tip my hat to the veteran group, because it would have been so easy to check out and say, organization's going a different direction. They're looking at the future. Where does that leave us? Why even bother? They didn't do that. They did the opposite.
Jeff says, it's a big old nothing burger. Riding the hot hand should be the expectation. Again, I'm not sure it's a quote-unquote nothing burger.
It's not as easy as you think to go to UC Saros and say you're not getting the nod. Because, I mean, you're going to show the history of since he became the starter over Pekka Rinne, and that they were facing this all those years ago, right? 2020, right before the shutdown,
Saros
it was becoming
well.
a really well. He wasn't just playing well; he was playing out of his mind well.
Yes,
and they were going with him in the big games. It had taken place, and right about the time it was taking place. Remember, it was a broken team that on January 1st lost the Winter Classic. They fired Peter Laviolette. The team was broken, right?
Yes.
John Hines was trying to put the pieces back together, and they were still kind of middling. They were battling to stay in the playoff race, and then he made the call and started going with UC Saros in the big games. Saros had played 3 or 4 just brilliant games right before the shutdown, and then we forgot about it for like 3 months. Everybody came back, and they went with Saros in the bubble, which was not an easy decision. And unfortunately, Saros didn't play as well as he did going into the break. But I guess that just the point, it was very difficult for John Hines to go to Pekka Rinne at that time and say, we're going with the younger guy. So it's equally tough now, and Saros has been in those shoes, right? So hopefully he takes it okay and waits, and his time will come back around. He's not going anywhere. He's going to be on this team for a long, long time, as is Annunen. So this is the tandem. So it's got to be a similar relationship where they are supportive of one another, and it's easy to root against the other guy privately, right? But that's not what these guys are made of. That's what I thought was always great about the Saros-Rinne relationship.
Jeff also says that's not the only difference in our discussion about Saros versus Annunen. He says team defense has played way worse in front of Saros. Well, Jeff, I've got that for you. As I just mentioned, 61 goalies have played at least 5 games. That means appearances, relief appearances, and starts, not just starts. There have been 61 goalies who have appeared in 5 games since the Olympic break. In terms of shot quality against while on ice for 60 minutes, which is team defense, Annunen ranks 56th out of 61. Saros ranks 43rd out of 61. So team defense hasn't been great for either goalie. It has been worse for Annunen, which goes back to, hey, he's been playing outstanding. Well, you know why? Because the team defense in front of him hasn't been playing that well. So he's had to be outstanding in order to steal these games. So Annunen, Jeff's text is accurate. The team defense since the Olympic break has been worse in front of Annunen than Saros, but not by a significant degree, but Annunen has had to be that good because the defense has failed in front of him. Failed might be a strong word. Has underwhelmed in front of him. Haig has been missing. Yossi missed the one game in Utah, so that plays into it as well.
Right.
But
and then taking away guys like Cole Smith and Michael McCarron, who are really the defensive-minded forwards, I think it took a while for them to adjust to that. They're still adjusting to that. The young kids, I think this is another thing that I think has been a big positive during this time is the huge minutes that the likes of Zach LaRue and Joachim Kimmel and Reed Schaefer, Luke Evangelista, Ryan Ufko, they're playing in these games. Adam Wilsby, Justin Barron, a young tandem, they've been a big plus, I think, in these games. They've had to play big minutes. They're not super experienced, but this is only going to help them down the road. But I'll give you maybe another way where Annunen has separated himself. If you think of a couple of periods that just pop off the top of my head. The game against Vegas where Saros was hurt. I don't know what the shots were, 21-2 or something. Nashville scored on the first shot of the game.
I believe it was 20-4 in favor of Vegas in the first period in that game.
And Nashville led 1-0. So Annunen was able to bail them out there. There was the first period against Anaheim here recently in that 43-save shutout. The first 20-25 minutes of the game. 21-22 shots. Nashville just couldn't even get the puck. Annunen kept it afloat. And then the third period on Saturday, where Nashville was controlling the game, led 2-0. Suddenly, Michael McCarron scored, and the Predators, they couldn't get a shot. Annunen was very, very good keeping them afloat there. Now, Saros did the same thing in Seattle in a really big game to start the first of the two really long, epic Odyssey road trips out west where all the games were played late at night, and the Predators was make or break, but they won enough along the way. So it's not like Saros hasn't done well at all. But like I said, he's 6-2-2. You put that on the table, you like that. But Annunen has been better.
April in Portland says, I have always been a fan of Saros, and I wanted to sign him long-term. I don't regret his contract. I think it's a good one, and we got a good deal. With that being said, Big Juice has the hot hand, and I think you have to play him until he gives you a reason not to. His size helps. I still think Saros is a better goalie. Saros is the only reason the Predators are in the hunt. He had zero help at the beginning of the season and won games they had no business winning. I don't care who plays as long as they win. Just win. I'm fine if they start Juice or Big Juice. April, I think that is a great way to look at it because I know a lot of you want to flame UC Saros and that this stretch of games validates your opinion that UC Saros wasn't worth the contract that he signed. But April is right. Early in the season, Saros was doing a lot of heavy lifting. There was a time early in the season when a lot of you probably didn't want Justus Annunen to start any games. And it's a credit to him that he has found this gear that has allowed him to play exceptionally well the past week especially, but really since the Olympic break. It is a great thing. But let's not forget the part that UC Saros played in this. And as I said before, the two of them together are the primary reason why the Predators are even playing meaningful games. If those two weren't playing as well as they played, especially since late February, tonight's game would be meaningless. Let's just call it what it is. It would be meaningless if not for the two of them. 615-737-1025. All right. I promised this earlier. I did not get to it. I will get to it next. I wanted to know how rare it is for UC Saros to not start consecutive games when healthy. I believe I have found the answer. Coming up next, 615-737-1025. Tee it up with us at the 5th Annual 615 Open, May 28th at Hermitage Golf Course. We are once again supporting Folds of Honor to help them fund life-changing scholarships for families of America's fallen heroes. Register now to play or sponsor at 615open.com.
All right, let's talk Loan Pronto. Credit card interest rates they're just eating up monthly budgets of a lot of people right now. The interest rate could be over 29% these days. And most people are only capable of making the minimum payments when the interest rates are that high. So you're spinning your wheels. You're not getting anywhere. So try Loan Pronto. They've got the mix for you. You can use the equity in your home to access hundreds of thousands of dollars of cash to pay off those big credit card bills, which gets rid of that interest that's costing you every month. So with Loan Pronto's rapid equity loan, you can pay off your credit cards, your existing HELOC, other types of loans like a car loan, or get money for a home improvement project and make your house even more valuable. One client got $100,000 approved, saved over $1,500 a month. And with Loan Pronto, you can do it all from your phone. Zero out of pocket, no hard credit pull up front, no appraisal, no long drawn out bank process, and no touching your first mortgage. So call Loan Pronto now and find out what you can get. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. That's 615-499-5780 or go to loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
D-Mace, Vingen and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Adam Vingen here with you. Derek Mason with the day off. He'll be back tomorrow. Chase McCabe going to pull double duty. He's going to join us for the final 2 hours of the program coming up at the top of the hour. Turron Davenport, ESPN, NFL Nation, Titans reporter, will join us at 4:20. Predators GM Barry Trotz will join us here at Barrel House live at 5 o'clock. taking your thoughts on the Predators, 615-737-1025. The Predators host the San Jose Sharks tonight. Puck drop at 7, pregame at 6. As always, right here on 1025 The Game, the big news, Justus Annunen expected to start for the third time in 4 games. And when I saw that news, Willie, because Andrew Burnett called it a game-time decision, but the reporters who were here for morning skate noted that Annunen was in the quote-unquote starter's crease at morning skate, so he is expected to be in goal again tonight against the Sharks. So it got me thinking. I was curious how many times UC Saros has not started consecutive games over the past few years. And with the help of the NHL Stats and Information Department and our mutual friend, Jacob Underwood, we found 7 instances since the 2020-2021 season. That's the 56-game season. We found 7 instances when UC Saros did not play in consecutive games. Starting most recently, March 19th through 21st, he was injured. February.
And really, to me, that is where Annunen got into the discussion to begin with.
Yes.
Because
he had
they
two
were the
great
biggest
games.
They were the biggest games that he had gotten the nod in. Because up until then, he was really still only getting the backup starts.
The back.
But when he played those 2 games against Seattle and then
Vegas.
against Vegas, I think it was eye-opening. It was head-turning. And I think what has also been happening behind the scenes, and I've been saying this, is how much more confidence the team was starting to build behind the scenes. And not only the team, because the team is always going to give you we have 2 great goalies, right? I've never heard a guy say, well, we need to start this guy over that guy. Like, it's a hockey code. No matter how much guys are playing well or struggling, they're going to back up both of them, right? We got great goalies. We got great goalies on our team. Just listen to it is a hockey-ism.
Yes.
But after those 2 games, I think it was like, okay, we've been seeing this guy. He's improving. And behind the scenes, I think the coaches were noticing that, particularly Ben Vanderklok and Mitch Korn were saying, this guy, I think they've always thought that Justus Annunen, from the moment they traded for him, had this in him, but he wasn't able to put it all together. But when he did it in those 2 games, I think that was a game changer.
So March 19th through 21st, Saros was injured. February 5th and 26th, that was right before and right after the Olympic break. There was a 3-week gap between.
Right. So that I don't even think even counts.
That doesn't even count.
Yeah.
March 29th through 31st, 2025. Now, I could not find a reason why Saros did not play in those games. I believe he dressed in those games. March 29th through 31st, 2025. But by the end of that season, last season, the season was lost, right?
Yes.
So,
they were way out of the picture at that point. So I think that would explain those 2.
April 28th and 29th of 2022, that was when Saros suffered the ankle injury near the end of that season, which cost him the rest of the playoffs.
Yeah, that ended his season, and Big Save Dave had to take over and Connor Ringo. And that is one, boy, if you could wave your magic wand, I still would have loved to have seen that team against the Calgary Flames in the first round, which is what would have happened with UC Saros playing at a Vezina level. That was a really unfortunate timing for that.
So April 28th and 29th of 2022, that was injury related. He did not play again that season. December 7th through 9th, 2021, that was non-COVID illness. So he missed 2 games in early December 2021 because of illness. March.
Non-COVID illness?
It was non-COVID illness.
What were the chances of that in 2021?
I don't know.
You're sick, but it's not COVID? What? Everybody had, when they were sick, it was COVID. It seemed like back then.
The team stressed it was not COVID. I looked this up. The team stressed it was not COVID, but he missed starts in early December 2021 because of illness. March 4th through 15th, 2021, that was because of injury. You may recall in a game here against the Carolina Hurricanes, soon to be Nashville Predators forward Nino Niederreiter hit Saros behind the net and knocked him out for a couple of weeks.
Okay.
So that was injury. So the last time I can remember Saros not starting consecutive games when healthy and the team was still in the race, February of 2021. That's how long it's been since Saros did not start consecutive games when he was healthy and the team was still playing for something. That's how long it's been. 5 years.
And I think you and
More
I
than
agree
5 years.
that at that time it was still a two-goalie. Saros was starting to pass Pekka Rinne, who was aging. That was Pekka Rinne's last season, I believe, right? But they were still they had struggled, right? But the team had struggled early in that shortened season, and neither goalie really grabbed it. And then Saros eventually, as we know, grabbed it and never looked back. He played unbelievably well during the stretch run of that season, and then on into the playoffs. So that's a long way back. So
More than 5 years.
So this is unique.
But
again, I think it's much more about Annunen's emergence than because, for example, the 2 games we just referenced where they went with Annunen in the 2 games where Saros was hurt, and Annunen played out of his mind well. They put Saros back in there for the next two games. He won both. So it was like, oh, Saros is back. You got two goalies playing great. And then each other time that Annunen would come in there, he would continue to play at an extremely high level.
Let's go to Scott in Hendersonville on our phone line. Scott, thank you for waiting and calling. Please go ahead.
This isn't exactly why I called, but yeah, I agree, Willie. This has nothing to do with Saros. This is all about Annunen, who I believe, from watching a certain broadcast on TV, has been the best goalie in the NHL since Christmas. Now, limited sample size given, but that game against Anaheim was the best game a goalie has had since they started taking advanced analytics. Like 6 goals saved above expected in a shutout. I mean, that's just unreal, right? I mean, he's not the hot hand. He's like the thermonuclear surface of the sun hand right now. And I think, there's nothing bad about it because Saros has been good. He's on him just right now. He's great. I mean, there's really no other way to say it. But I was calling slightly different topic, and this is not sour grapes. But the NHL point system and how it's rewarding the Kings, they have got to either go to a 3-point per game system or be like every other major sport and just not reward just getting to overtime. You get no reward in any other sport for going to overtime and losing. And if we had a 3-point system, it'd be, the Preds and the Jets neck and neck. But I think it's just problematic and, quite frankly, disgusting that the Kings lose every single game in overtime and get rewarded for it. Get your thoughts on that?
Thank you for the call, Scott. Now, we've had this discussion with our friend Elliot Friedman. The NHL does not have a desire to switch to a 3-point system. And for those who don't know what Scott is referring to, that would be 3 points for a regulation win, 2 points for an overtime or shootout win, 1 point for an overtime or shootout loss, 0 points for a regulation loss. But the NHL does not have an appetite for that. And I hear what Scott is saying about the Kings. Willie, correct me if I'm wrong. The Kings have played more overtime games than any team in history.
Correct.
This season. They've lost more overtime games than any team in history.
Correct.
This season. And yet, here they are in the final wild card spot. They have won 4 in a row. The past 2 did not go to overtime. So let's give the Kings a little credit.
They're playing well.
The Kings going for their 5th consecutive win tonight against the Kraken. And once again, the Predators need a win to stay alive. The Predators will be eliminated from playoff contention tonight if 2 things happen. If the Predators lose in regulation to the Sharks and the Kings win in any fashion against Seattle. So overtime, shootout, regulation, it doesn't matter. If those 2 things happen, the Predators will be eliminated by night's end. But they've just got to win to keep it going.
I would say if you're worried about all the math, I wouldn't worry about it until the Predators, if they win this game, that's when I think you can sit back the next couple of days and say, all right, what needs to happen here? Obviously, see what happens in Seattle in this one tonight where LA comes visiting. But the only thing I would add, I would be open to the 3-2-1 if they wanted to do it. It makes more sense. But like Elliot has said, I think the commissioner likes the murky, keep everybody in it, keep as many teams close as you can. I think he likes that. I think it allows underdog teams, quite honestly, to have seasons maybe where they punch above their weight, maybe because they're just fortunate. The biggest reason I think it would be good to go to 3-2-1, which they do in the Olympics, right? They have the 3-2-1 in the Olympics. Am I right?
Yes.
I believe so. It doesn't change the standings as much as you think, but it will reward teams that really play open and go for it. For example, the Kings are largely a defensive team. They tend to play lower scoring games, and lower scoring games are more likely to go to overtime than high scoring games.
The Olympics, by the way, does use a 3-point system.
Does that make sense mathematically to you when I say that? Like if you're constantly playing 2-1, 2-2, 3-2 games, your games are going to go to overtime. They're more likely to go overtime just mathematically than a game that changes hands and there are 7 or 8 goals scored, right? Because there's more of a chance. The more goals that happen, the more chances that somebody separates, right? If it's constantly a tight game, it's 0-0 for half the game, 1-0, 1-1, those games go to overtime more. And so that rewards teams that play the defensive pack it in style. And so I think that's the best argument I've heard for reward the teams that are playing to win and going for it. Reward those teams that will more often blow the other team out, right?
One of my least favorite things in hockey, before we go to break, one of my least favorite things in hockey is when two teams that need overtime points, it's like 30 seconds left, and the other team will just
right, they'll shut it down.
They'll just stand behind the net for 30 seconds. All right, let's go to overtime, boys.
And that would be different. That would create different scenarios, especially late in the season, if the team's like, well, winning in overtime isn't good enough. We have to go for the 3.
Yes.
So you wouldn't see anybody do that.
I can see the merits of the 3-point system. It just
there's merits for sure.
The NHL.
The downside is sometimes let's say you got a fan who is a huge football fan and not paying any attention to hockey until after football season, and then is going to jump on the bandwagon in February and say, hey, how's our team doing? And they see the stands and there's all these columns. There's 3 points, 2 points, and that fan who's a casual fan is confused and saying, I don't know if I want to. I don't know what are they talking about here? There's another column. What 3-2-1? What are you talking? It's just another reason for a fan to say, I don't understand what's going on in hockey. I don't know what's going on. I have no clue. There's always that guy you still run into, right? The team's now been here for 25 years. There's still an odd fan going, I just don't know much about hockey. I don't know. You don't need to know that much. Just come and have a good time. That's what I always tell the people. You don't need to know. Just you score, it's good. The horn goes off, cheer. You'll learn the rest. But there's people like to look. They're more comfortable with things that they've grown up with, right? They know about offsides and pass interference and illegal motion because they've grown up with it. If they haven't grown up, you have to get them in somehow. And when there's barriers like I just don't know the rules or I've never played or what's 3-2-1, that's a barrier.
615-737-1025. We will get back into the Predators in just a little bit. Barry Trotz will join us at 5 o'clock here live from Barrel House. Predators versus Sharks. Puck drop at 7. Pregame at 6 right here on 1025 The Game. Coming up next, we will switch gears to the NFL draft because a top 10 potential pick who could be a Titans pick at number 4 overall was in the news over the weekend for the wrong reasons. We will discuss that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Adam Bingen. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Adam Vingan, David Janes, Chase McCabe.
What's up?
From Chase and Big Joe, pulling double duty today. Joining us live from Bridgestone Arena. Predators versus Sharks tonight. Puck drop at 7, pregame at 6. Right here on 102.5 The Game. Chase, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Figured I'd help out. Willie's getting ready for the game tonight and to call a Preds win against San Jose. We're going to throw it into the universe. Does that violate Coach Willie, me saying that?
Coach Willie will not have any comment on that.
All right.
It's okay. Multiple people have already accused me of jinxing the Predators because I've mentioned multiple times that the Predators have won 15 consecutive games against the Sharks, which is a fact.
It's a fact.
You can't jinx. You can't jinx.
Yeah.
I don't believe in jinxes. I'm sorry.
Well, but here's what I think is fun about this whole thing.
Coach Willie has no comment on that last statement either.
Is we have Coach Willie that is like, he's going to think everything's a jinx, which he's always been that way, and I love him for it. And then there's you that is like not actively rooting for them to lose, but like you're trying to find every little thing of how it's going to help draft positioning and rebuilding. And
I haven't
stuff like
mentioned
that.
any of that today.
I know.
I'm just throwing it out
But
there. I
it's
will say
just-
this, though. The worst case scenario, the Predators are 4-1-1 in the month of April. Worst case scenario, they keep winning and then don't make the playoffs, which would hurt their draft lottery odds. So you got me saying it, but Chase made me do it. Take all of your criticisms and hand them to Chase.
The people know where I stand. I'm like, at this point, I'm like, just win, baby. Like, I don't care. Like, if you get in and you lose in 4, you get in and lose in 4. If you get in and what happened 9 years ago happens, then we're all working a lot longer until June.
Yes.
So-
It is good for business for the Predators to be in the playoffs. That is for sure. Let's focus on the NFL draft because thank God the first round of the NFL draft is next week. I believe it's next Thursday.
That is correct.
Oh, thank goodness gracious. The NFL draft. Oh, my goodness. Thank God it's here. And over the weekend, a report surfaced about a potential top 10 pick in the NFL draft, that being Rueben Bain from the University of Miami. This was first reported by Oliver Connolly of the Read Optional. The headline, Rueben Bain linked to 2024 Miami crash that left passenger fatally injured. I am going to read directly from the story so I don't miss any facts. From Oliver Connolly. Quote, Rueben Bain, a projected top 10 pick in the 2026 NFL draft, was involved in a fatal traffic collision in Miami in March of 2024. According to records and reports reviewed by the Read Optional, the incident has not been previously reported. Bain, then a sophomore, was driving on Interstate 95 in Miami at 4 a.m. on March 17, 2024, when his vehicle struck another car before careening into concrete barriers on both sides of the highway, according to police crash records. One of 4 passengers in Bain's car, Destiny Betts, a 22-year-old college student from Georgia who was visiting Miami for spring break, suffered incapacitating injuries and was rushed to the Ryder Trauma Center from the scene. She never regained consciousness. Bett died on June 13, 2024, after spending almost 3 months in a coma. The report does mention that the careless driving charge against Bain was dismissed by a court approximately 2 weeks before Betts' death while she remained in a coma. No finding of criminal liability has been made in connection with the crash or her death. But what I found interesting about this, Chase, when this story broke, and as Oliver Connolly wrote, the incident had not been previously reported. But there were a lot of NFL and NFL draft analysts who said teams have known about this. Todd McShay, for example, said, quote, by no means am I diminishing the severity of the terrible tragedy, but the wording here reads as if this is recent news to NFL teams. It's not. This has been known and vetted for several months. So here's the general question, Chase. If you were Mike Borgonzi, and I assume, if Todd McShay is correct, that Borgonzi and the Titans know about this, would this give you any pause? We're not talking about the short arms here. I'm putting that to the side. Would this news give you any pause about drafting Bain number 4 overall?
If I knew about it, beforehand, and Rueben Bain or his people were the ones that told me about it beforehand, and I didn't have to find out on my own? No, because it is a big deal. Somebody died. I mean, that obviously makes it a big deal. The young man was involved in a terrible accident. But again, and I'm going to sit, Willie and I worked with Floyd Reese for a long time. So I hear Floyd in my head sitting in the interview room with him going, "Were you driving? Yes, sir. Were you drunk? No, sir. Were you drunk? No, sir. Were you drunk? No, sir. Okay. I've asked that. I've asked you 3 times. Is there anything else that I need to know about that's going to make you or me look stupid? If the answer is no, and you have all the facts and everything is matching up with now that the report is out, but you have done your due diligence as a draft prospect and your team has to let me know about it, then it doesn't change anything because I knew about it."
Willie, an interesting point in this article by Oliver Connolly. Quote, "In conversations, several team sources drew comparisons to the draft night slide of Laramie Tunsil, concerned that further revelations about Bain could be revealed close to or on draft night." Pause.
Ooh.
Tunsil, there were leaked videos of him wearing a gas mask bong.
Yeah.
Okay?
I remember very well.
It was 2016 was a different time. Smoking weed wasn't as acceptable back then than it is now. I understand what the reporter is trying to say, that, hey, this revelation coming so close to the draft may give teams pause about drafting Bain, maybe who could slide. I don't think the author is trying to directly compare Bain being the driver in a fatal accident versus Laramie Tunsil ripping a bong hit from a gas mask. It's not the same thing.
But I think it is something that I don't want to say is super common, but you see it from time to time. C.J. Stroud and the test score.
Oh, yes.
Very late in the game 2 years
Was
ago.
it like the S2 or something like that?
A company that has got a lot of Nashville ties, right? That the better version of the Wonderlic. Yeah. And it was really gaining. And since then, since Stroud has done well, you don't hear as much about that test as you did. It was becoming kind of a trendy way to say this quarterback has gotten better mental tools to translate his skills to the NFL. It was being used that way. Stroud apparently didn't do very well on a lot of aspects of it. It didn't bother him, but it was thrown out there right before the draft and had him answering a lot of questions going, "Hey, I don't know." But I do feel like this is done strategically sometimes, where probably behind the scenes, a lot of the teams, if not all the teams, have the information, but they want the media to get these stories to maybe throw off the mock drafts and things like that. Well, so I would ask, let's use another example for the Titans. So when the Titans drafted Jeffrey Simmons, he had 2 big things going on. He had an ACL, which was self-explanatory, but then he had the whole video of him assaulting the young woman. And so that could have been a complete disqualifier, and probably was for several teams. So when a draft prospect, has a big issue like that, I think you have to do the extra research and say, was this a one-time screw up that could have happened to a lot of kids that age? Or is this a revealing of character where it's a pattern that, okay, this is a red flag. This is a do not draft, because 2 different teams could look at it 2 different ways, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, here's the other thing too. I'm not saying that this necessarily happens, but let's say that this gets out and some teams knew about it and some teams didn't. The teams that knew about it, that it doesn't concern them, they're going, well, maybe this pushes him down a little bit.
Right. That's the incentive to let it out, right?
Right.
Just in case you didn't know.
Yeah.
As one texter,
if you want to let him slide, that's fine with us.
As Skyler says, a team picking between 12th and 25th probably leaked that, hoping Bain will fall to them.
Yep.
Another texter said, Bain is about to fall to Howie Roseman in the Philadelphia Eagles.
Because they took a chance on Carter, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and that was the talk with him of he had an incident. Does that hurt the draft stock and all of that?
Here's the question I have for both of you, and we'll ask Turron Davenport about this coming up next as well. Here's the question I have for the two of you. In the limited time, we have heard from Mike Borgonzi. And by the way, I believe Mike Borgonzi is expected to address reporters Thursday morning as part of his pre-draft news conference. But what we know about Mike Borgonzi so far, he has placed a premium on culture. Remember, when the Titans traded Jarvis Brownlee, there was a lot of talk about culture and culture fit. You could also probably say the same about the trading of Tavondre Sweat as well. So Borgonzi has already shown us that he wants to build a culture, and anyone who may clash with that culture may not be a fit here. I'm wondering if that applies to this. Does Mike Borgonzi say, I want young players who can help me build a culture? This news may make me reconsider whether Bain is a player who can help me build that culture.
That's a great question, and that's one that they have to investigate. But just look, I don't know anything about that night or what happened. I just know what you read in that article. It depends on just on the surface, right? Without doing any research, I could sit there and say, hey, that was a terrible thing that happened, but it could have happened to anybody. Because there was no criminal charge. They obviously vetted it. It was out there, but they didn't find him guilty of anything, right? It's not like they didn't know what happened or it was secret. They knew it happened. They looked at it, and he was not found at fault, right?
Well, I hope that on Thursday, when Mike Borgonzi has his availability, somebody asks, "Were you aware of this in your vetting of Rueben Bain?" Because Bain has been connected to the Titans. He has talked about Borgonzi has talked about Rueben Bain and liking him. So I would hope that somebody's going to ask, hey, what, did you know about this ahead of time? He can go into as much detail as he wants, but I would hope he would say, yes, we knew about it, or no, we didn't know about it, or, something. If he gives you the answer, non-answer, then I would be a little concerned of what that means. I'll ask you guys this, because I brought this up with Joe when we were talking about it earlier today. Let's say all the facts in this case are the same except for one point. It reads 4 p.m. instead of 4 a.m. Does it look different? Even though it's an accident.
I think it's a question you have to ask if it happens at 4 a.m. And,
correct.
Then you get into how fast was everybody
what
gone.
What were you doing before?
Right.
Yeah.
Nothing good happens after 1 a.m. Whatever the old adage is, you definitely have to look at all of that, right? But he's a college-age kid. And if it's a one-time thing, then it depends. You put that into your whole evaluation, but you have to determine, was this one just bad decision or unfortunate incident that happened, but it doesn't define him as a person, or this is part of a pattern of things that we are seeing that concern us.
Correct.
I mean, there's any number of things in between that could be true. I'll go back to Jeffrey Simmons, right? It went the other way. He had this one moment that everybody saw, terrible moment, caught on video, probably would have disqualified a really high percentage of people. But when they did the research, he had a lot of people going to bat for him, saying that was not the character-defining thing that it might appear. It was a terrible mistake, but it's not him. He's a better person than that.
615-737-1025. Your thoughts on Rueben Bain from Miami, a projected top 10 pick in the draft next week. A report over the weekend. He was involved in a fatal traffic collision in Miami on March of 2024. Would that be disqualifying for you if you were in charge of the Titans and picking at number 4? 615-737-1025. But coming up next, Turron Davenport, ESPN, NFL Nation Titans reporter, will join the program. We'll ask him about this and more coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Chase McCabe, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D-Mace, Vingan and Donick, 1025 The Game. Willie Donick, Chase McCabe, Adam Vingan here with you. Let's go to our phone line. Driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Turron Davenport, ESPN, NFL Nation, Titans reporter, and he is presented by Bart Durham Injury Law. Hi, TD. How are you?
Good afternoon. How are you guys?
We're doing well. Thank you for joining us as always. So, Turron, we were just talking about the story that broke over the weekend regarding Rueben Bain and the fatal traffic collision he was involved in as a member of the Miami Hurricanes in March of 2024. My question for you is, one, were the Titans aware of this story before it broke? And two, do you think that this news will give them any pause about potentially drafting him at number 4 overall?
They were aware of the story. It's something that has been known. It wasn't necessarily reported upon because there were just a lot of mixed things coming out. And anytime you're dealing with the death, like it's before you deal with that, you gotta make sure that everything is dotted and crossed, if you know what I mean. So as far as on their board, I find it hard to believe that he's on there. I haven't got any indication that he's not, but I will find it hard to believe. I'm not going to say on their board. I think ownership is probably. I would have a hard time imagining ownership, Amy approving of that selection.
Which is interesting, Turron. You would find it hard to believe Amy approving of that pick because of this story or because of something else?
No, because you got to go back to the Isaiah Wilson situation, and just the way things worked out with that. I think he made it tougher for anybody that has stuff to become a member of the Titans, and especially at such a high pick.
All right, Turron, let's say in your spare time between reporting on the Titans and cheering on the Mets, you opened a sports book, the TD Sportsbook. We can workshop the title. If you were to set odds on the top 3 players who could be drafted by the Titans based on what you have gathered a week and a half away from the first round of the draft, how would you order those players?
David Bailey. This is tough. I would say David Bailey. I'm going to say David Bailey, Sonny Styles, of Real Reese, Jeremiah Love.
Do you think David Bailey gets to 4? Because isn't there some reporting about? Okay, so who was second? Sonny Styles.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
And
Really?
I think you mix in a trade back and Sonny Styles. I think that's ideally where they would go. A trade back, with whether it's Washington, New Orleans, whoever may want to come up and get Jeremiah Love. But I think ideally they get Styles in a trade back.
Well, let's take that hypothetical one step further. Would you, because this, I wish D-Mace were here because we know how he feels about Jeremiah Love.
Yes.
But I have thought about that, Turron, is if you see that there are a lot of teams that really like Jeremiah Love and are willing to jump up to grab him, what are you willing to take to give him up, but also get the extra assets and still get a player you like? So who would be maybe possible, even if it was just to move down a couple of slots and get an extra pick or two? What are you seeing there?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Whether it be Washington, New Orleans, those are teams that could be in the running to want to go up and get Love. Obviously, I know they've made some moves as far as signings are concerned, like Travis Etienne going to New Orleans. But if you're drafting a guy number 4 overall, like top 5 overall, you have all intentions of him to come in and be the guy.
Y'all are forgetting one that should always be a factor. There's a crazy old man picking at 12. If he falls in love with a player, no pun intended, and says, I want him, the Cowboys would be in play, and I think they could be.
Well, okay, that was going to be my next question too, Turron, is how far down do you think the Titans are willing to go? Because you hear things like, hey, there are only 13 or 14 real first-round grades in this draft. So if you go too far down, you may not be getting the elite guy that you're looking for. So how do you view that?
Yeah, that's exactly why I didn't mention Dallas. It's very intriguing, right? 12 and 24 for 4, and probably more compensation as well. But I think I don't think they move out of the top 10, honestly, because this roster isn't in a position where they could afford to not add one of the premium players. You know what I mean? So that's really the case for me. And when you look at this, so that's why I mentioned New Orleans and Washington.
ESPN's Turron Davenport is here with us on DVD. Something that Tim Hasselbeck and I and Joe got into a conversation with on last week, your colleague at ESPN, was Jeremiah Love's fit not only with the Titans, but he said he's a fit specifically with Cam Ward in his eyes as a quarterback, as a guy that would be a playmaker for him, would take pressure off of him. We saw it, what Derrick Henry did for quarterbacks here, Eddie George, and so on. So when you're kind of going through your evaluation, why would you think that the Titans wouldn't view that, or why wouldn't you view it as much that way and go more towards the defensive playmaker?
Yeah, well, look, man, if it were up to me, I would draft Love. So, if it were up to me. But, I think when you look at this, I think they still feel they got to build the roster out more. You look at a guy like Sonny Styles and just dropping him in that defense, and just going off of what I've observed from Robert Saleh in the past, and also in him talking at the owners' meetings, they seem to be okay with the running back group. And it's just one of those situations where, okay, it's solid, but are you okay with being solid to sacrifice what could potentially be really, really good? And I think that's the dilemma that they're dealing with.
Do you see a scenario if they were to trade back from 4? Obviously, they would get more draft assets they could use. Let's say they want to dance with New Orleans at 8. They move back, and then there's something they like at the end of the first round. Could you see a scenario of using some of those extra picks to move back into the first round?
Absolutely. If let's say they like R. Mason Thomas or Cassius Howe or somebody like that, because they pick at 35, so they would obviously have to, involve pick 35. So it would be one of those situations where a guy that they thought was 100% a first rounder is there staring at them at the top of the second. And I mean, could it be like a Jordan Tyson? Maybe. Could it be, a Mekhi Lemon? Maybe. And that's what's so intriguing about the draft. You have guys that, at the beginning of the period, everybody's like, oh, well, they're a top 10 pick. And then a lot of times, as the first round goes on, that name is just still on the board and just passing down and passing down and passing down. And then, at the end of that Thursday, his name is still there. So now you got teams positioning. So I could see that. I could see, a couple of the names that I mentioned.
Turron, does Will Levis have trade value in your mind, and how much, if so?
I think he has the type of trade value to where you package it with a pick to move up into, I'm not going to say the first round, but I think you look at like the 4th round, and let's say, you're early in the 4th and you want to, move into the 3rd. Hey, look, Will Levis in the 4th to move up 7 spots to get player X, Ted Hurst, from Georgia State at pick number, 75 or whatever. You know what I mean? Those are the types of things I can see them doing with Will Levis. That's the type of move I think he would want.
Turron, I am curious about the quality of quarterbacks beyond Fernando Mendoza. We expect Fernando Mendoza to go number 1 overall. There's been a lot of talk on how high Ty Simpson can go. From there, the rest of the quarterbacks, they seem okay, right? Garrett Nussmeier's in this mix. Carson Beck's in this mix, I believe. So when you're
Drew
looking,
Aller.
Drew Aller, right? So when you're looking,
Diego Pavia.
also Diego Pavia. When you're looking at the caliber of quarterbacks who could be available on day 2 or day 3 of the draft, do you see one of those quarterback needy teams taking a shot on Levis versus drafting someone? And do you think there are any particular teams who could be in that mix for Levis as opposed to drafting their own quarterback?
I think teams could take a shot at Levis. I continue to look at the Rams as a team that I think would be
I've thought
ideal.
of the Rams myself, yeah.
Yeah, just because, obviously Stafford is still playing outstanding football, but, he just at the ESPY said he was coming back, and they didn't know what was happening. So I think you look at that, and they are aware of that, so they're going to try to, make sure they have the future secured. And I think that situation would be perfect for him to go in there and back up Stafford, learn from him, a guy who has a similar skill set, and learn from him, and then be able to take over eventually and be under the wing of Sean McVay. I think that would be a very good match for both parties.
Turron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation Titans reporter, has been our guest on D-Mays. Vin Ginadonic, he joins us every Monday, and he is presented by Bart Durham Injury Law. TD, as always, a pleasure. We'll catch up next week.
All right, for sure, man. Appreciate you guys. Take care.
You as well, TD. 615-737.
Notice we didn't really talk any Mets. There's a reason for that. We stink right now.
Do tell, Willie Donick.
We're terrible. Just got swept by the A's at home.
But hey, they've got the Dodgers tonight.
I know. Well, how about this schedule? They went all the way out to San Francisco and won 2 out of 3 against Tony Vitello's, or 3 out of 4 against Tony Vitello's Giants. Come all the way back home, play 6 games, lose 5. Now they got to go all the way back out to Dodger Stadium. What's going on with that? No day off? Come on. By the way,
the Braves fan over
the
here
Tomahawk
has
chop
no
is
sympathy
happening
for you.
I got to do a hats off to Chris Sale. That guy, I don't know who his arm doctor is, but when that guy's healthy, he can still pitch. Holy cow. Still dominating like it was 5-6 years ago.
I'm not going to, he is, and I hope he can last the season because they don't have a whole lot other than him right now.
It's so ironic. Like all these other younger guys are hurt, and he's managed to be healthy, and when he's healthy, he's lights out.
I love Walt Weiss too. That's a player. That's a player.
He was so much fun to watch as a player too.
Yeah.
Walt Weiss. He had like the same glove from the time he was like 12 years old all the way through his major league career. He's like interesting guy.
When he charged Soler, I think it was Soler. Yeah, when he charged him and like the fight was happening, I'm like, what is this guy doing? It's the manager, but I love it at the same time.
New York guy there.
615-737-1025. We will react to what Turron had to say. We also have your reaction to the Rueben Bain story that broke over the weekend. 615-737-1025. Also a reminder that Predators GM Barry Trotz will join us here live at the top of the hour at 5 p.m. 615-737-1025. All of our offseason coverage of the Tennessee Titans is presented by Tennessee Brewworks. Raise a glass with Tennessee Brewworks, proud partner and official craft beer of the football offseason coverage right here on 1025 The Game. D-Mace, Vingen and Donick, 102.5 The Game. I see what you did there, David James, fast car. We are live at Bridgestone Arena, Predators versus Sharks. Barry Trotz joining us in 15 minutes as we get back into the Predators. Yet another ginormous game for the local professional hockey team coming up tonight. Just 2 games left in the regular season. We'll see if they make the playoffs, which start this weekend. But let's get back to the Tennessee Titans. And Chase, there was something that Turron Davenport said in the previous segment that did not sit well with you.
I didn't like it. I didn't like what I heard there, and it wasn't TD. It was him saying basically that he does not see Amy Adams-Strunk approving a Rueben Bain pick at 4. And if there's any kind of baggage, like I'm with him, I don't see it either. But my thing is you have to trust your people. You got burnt a couple of times. Totally understand. Isaiah Wilson, I will never truly understand what happened there. I remember we've had John Robinson on our show, and he talked about that pick of like they thought the picture looked a lot different when they first saw it. But if your front office that you have backed off of and said, hey, I'm going to let you do your thing is saying we like Bain at 4, then you need to trust that and let them take Bain at 4. You don't need to go in and veto a pick because you're worried about something. That's where, and I say this, politely, let the football people do the football things.
David from Watertown says, I feel that a heartfelt conversation would need to be had to determine if I could draft a player or not. When I was younger, I caused a really bad wreck that did not kill anyone, but it very well could have. I fell asleep at the wheel on the interstate, and it's something that I've never been able to get out of my head. My wreck happened at 6 a.m. His was at 4 a.m. I just don't think it's right to judge based on a story that was just released. Another texter says, if the victim's family forgives him, why should the NFL punish this kid and hurt his future over a mistake?
I agree with that.
I think that's a really good point, and none of us know. And that's why you have conversations and you do all the investigating, find out everything you can about it, and then you make an informed decision as best you can. But I think that's a good premise: is don't go in making any assumptions either way.
Right.
The family of the deceased said in a statement to the Read Optional, which broke this story, quote, Destiny's passing was the result of a tragic accident that occurred several years ago. While the loss remains incredibly painful for our family, we have worked hard to find peace and move forward. At this time, we are not seeking public attention surrounding this tragedy and respectfully request that our family's privacy be honored. We also wish Mr. Bain the best as he continues his life and career.
Yeah. So, look, I agree. It's an awful thing. It is a big deal. Somebody did die. But if you've done your due diligence as a team and you were aware of it and you've talked to him about it and he has given his, you got all the facts, I don't think it should hurt him. And to what I was saying about,
so there was no mention of DUI or anything like that in this, right?
It was careless driving was the original. I don't know if that's
the police crash report states that Bain, quote, operated his vehicle in a careless or negligent manner, end quote. Following the collision with the second vehicle, Bain's car struck the east concrete wall before being redirected into the west concrete wall, where it came to rest. It was later towed after sustaining disabling damage. No field sobriety test was administered at the scene. Bain was cited for careless driving. That charge was dismissed approximately 2 weeks before Betts died while she remained in a coma.
Well, I'm also just wondering, from the Amy Adams-Strunk part of it, the recency of the Devondre Sweat thing too is
he
that
had a DWI or a DUI?
DWI.
Whatever it was. Then there was the whole the whole speculation of, well, they never really, since Borgonzi came in, right? I think Rand Carthon believed in him, thought he was going to grow out of whatever immaturity, whatever. And I don't think the signals pointed the same way with Borgonzi. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would agree.
Borgonzi was like, I don't.
Because Borgonzi immediately was kind of looking at, which again was why I was like, why is Brinker ahead of him? Because Brinker was a part of all this too. But Borgonzi immediately came in here and was looking at some guys like, yeah, y'all don't fit what we're trying to do.
Yeah. And then, of course, the actual scheme was not a direct fit with Sweat
Right.
either. That made it probably even easier to move on.
Right. So I think that Borgonzi has done his due. And look, my guess is they're not taking Bain at 4. There was a time where I really wanted that, and I still think he's a good player. But all indications are now that, the players that Turron named are probably going to be the top of their draft board. Now, we'll see if Reese and Bailey are there. If it comes down to Love and Sonny Styles, to me, going on what Borgonzi said of best player available, Jeremiah Love would be the best player available. I'd be very curious to hear his defense of that if they go Styles at 4, but we'll see.
But don't you think there's probably a couple teams that, I don't know if they directly fed the story to the writer, what do you call it, the read optional?
The read optional.
Pretty good name for, I have to say. I give him credit. But they, fed the story with the idea of, well, maybe that'll make some teams think twice. We like Bain. We would take him at X pick or whatever if he slipped. But it just creates some discussion and just throws some things out there. It's information that a lot of teams maybe already had, but just in case it did. Now the public knows. And there are times where the public can probably swing an owner or maybe even a GM to say, hey, man, I'm not sure you want this guy because if you take him, you're going to have to answer a lot of questions on this and that.
My guess is she had a few people listening to Sports Talk Radio in Nashville, Tennessee today. She probably did. Whether she did or she had people, see if this comes up. If they were truly like, hey, we really like Bain at 4. 2037 says, reports already had another ticket doing 100 miles an hour a year later. Stay away. John McClain.
See, now this is the kind of
John
thing.
McClain did bring that up with us today, that there was a report that he had a speeding ticket a year later, and so he didn't learn from it. That would concern me.
Yes.
If that is true, then I would definitely have a concern about that.
That was reported, by the way, by Trey Wallace of Outkick.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Trey Wallace reported that. Let's see if I can find the specific details.
Trey's in the know.
I can't find it off the top of my head. He was cited off the top, quickly. He was cited for a second time for careless driving in October 2025. That was also later dismissed.
Okay.
So
does it, because then a texter says falls to the low first round, Titans trade up to get him. Would it deter you then? If he falls out of the top 20 and all of a sudden he's sitting there and you're the Titans and you move back into the first round, then do you take him?
Well, look, there's so many guys over the years that fell for one reason or another. Like Randy Moss is one. He had a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff.
But
he got it together for the most part as a pro, right? He had a couple of goofy things that happened, but nothing crazy, right?
I'd say Minnesota liked him, and then
Patriots
later.
That's so. There's probably some teams that are looking back going, well, we thought he had characteristics. So you never know for sure.
by the way, we heard from the Turron Davenport Sportsbook on the betting odds for the Titans' number 4 pick. Here is what DraftKings Sportsbook says about the action ahead of the draft. Number 1 pick, no shocker. Fernando Mendoza, minus 20,000 as the number 1 pick. David Bailey, the favorite at number 2, minus 170. Arvell Reese, the favorite at number 3, at plus 105. Jeremiah Love, the favorite at number 4, plus 105. Followed by David Bailey, who Turron Davenport said he does not expect to be there at 4. So let's take Bailey off. Arvell Reese at plus 650. I don't think we expect him to be there either.
No.
Take him off. Rueben Bain, plus 700. Doesn't sound like the Titans are interested. Take him off. So it would be Jeremiah Love at plus 105 or Sonny Styles at plus 750.
Interesting. Okay, so let's go back to something we talked about with Turron. If Love, by most of the sports books, is the most likely 4th pick on the board, is that fair to say that he's right in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a good shot he's there at 4.
It's the best player available.
If he's the best player, but okay, so weigh that, taking him versus moving down 4 or 5 spot, whatever it might be, and getting still somebody that you feel like you're going to like. I think that is a great dilemma.
I will say
great
this.
question.
I will say this. On draft night, if they're sitting at 4 and he's available and they pass on him to trade back, I'm not going to be happy. Because Borgonzi said,
even if it's let's say it's another second or another first to move down.
And what if the trade down nets you Carnell Tate, for example? Because we've talked about Carnell Tate. Not sure we would take him at number 4 overall, but if you move down to
what
8,
does Derek say about Tate?
Derek
not worthy of the 4th pick.
Yes, Derek
but
does
likes
not.
him?
Yes,
He
likes Carnell Tate. Does not believe he is worthy of being the number 4 overall pick.
See, I want his teammate,
Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah,
but he's not in the draft.
Yeah, I want him next year.
Got to lose some more games.
Oh
yes.
man,
That's a good question.
I still
Chase.
wouldn't be happy because I think the best if you're going best player available now. If you get,
I'm a trade down guy. You know
Willie trade
I
down.
want to know
Dominic,
exactly what
it.
I could get and how many spots I'm going, but I'm fielding the phone calls.
Yeah, sure. You're fielding.
Tell me
the
what
phone
you got.
calls, but
you like love? Call me. Call the love line.
I look at it if
That's
love
copyright infringement.
if love is available, and there's trouble. If love is available, I mean it's kind of like our next guest talked about at the trade deadline. I got to have a king's ransom to move off of it. That's just me.
615-737-1025. You know it's trouble when Barry Trotz and Terry Crisp walk in at exactly the same time. Barry Trotz will join us coming up next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Chase McCabe, Adam Vingan, 1025. The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Willie Donick, Adam Vingan, Chase McCabe. Predators GM Barry Trotz is with us as we are live at Bridgestone Arena. Predators versus Sharks tonight. Puck drop at 7, pregame at 6. Right here on 102.5 The Game. Yet another big game. Barry, that's what we've been talking about for weeks now. Big game, big game, big game. Yet another big game tonight against San Jose.
Yeah, no, they've all been big games. The guys did a great job. I mean, we got 7 out of 10 points on that road trip. It seemed like we were gone for about a month. They were all meaningful games, especially obviously the LA ones, the San Jose. I mean, they're all meaningful. And it was the guys did a great job. We found ways to win. There's, we got goaltending when we needed it. We got special teams when we needed. We hung in there, and that's a tribute to the group, the leadership, the coaching staff, everybody, because those are hard games and very good hockey teams.
The hottest topic, Barry, has been Justus Annunen's play over the past week and how he is expected to start tonight for the third time in 4 games over UC Saros. How would you assess the state of your goaltending and specifically Annunen's recent performance?
Well, just fantastic, both of them actually. Right now I think we've got the 3rd most steals in the National Hockey League, and that's a tribute to your goaltending. And both just Juice. Who's in that? Juice. I used to say the 6'6" Finnish goaltender, and we always had good goaltending. So it's a great situation to be in, to have both goaltenders on top of their game, and the coaches are using that. We're going to need, Juice has carried the majority of the year, if you will. He's got 60 starts. Eustace has gotten hot, and it's no different than you got to ride what happens. It's got some great things happening for us. I mean, goaltending has been really good. All our kids are playing. It's been fantastic for their development. I look at I heard a stat. Steven Stamkos. This doesn't get enough love. Steven Stamkos had 4 goals after 22 games. He has now 40 goals. He's the 3rd person in our organization to ever score 40 goals. He's got 36 goals in his last 60 games. I mean, there's some great stories of guys stepping up and getting the job done. And it always starts in goal and we've got great goaltending. Our defense, I mean, Roman Josi is our captain. He leads that back end, and you're getting, you're seeing a Ryan Ufko step up. You're seeing Willsby back from injury, playing well. We got injuries with Haig and Josi out, and guys coming in, and Osterley coming in and doing a really good job for us. So it's just a really good team effort every night. This group has battled. If you would have said, where were we back at it, back at Thanksgiving, I mean, God, you'd say, well, we're going to be picking first overall or be, right where Vancouver is. And right now we're, right at the end of the season, playing meaningful games with a young group of rookies and some veterans who have, had really great years for us. And, we can get in the playoffs. So what a great spot to be. It's fun. It's exhausting sometimes, but it's fun. I look at it, I count our blessings that, this group at one point said, you heard the term win the week, and they just have won the week, and they haven't looked too far ahead and haven't been disappointed. They've had games where they deserved to win and they didn't. They just sort of park it and go on to the next game. And there's games that we probably didn't deserve to win, but our goaltenders have stood on their head, or our special teams stepped up at the right time, and we found ways to win. So there's nothing I can say bad about the culture that we have and the group that's performing night in and night out. And we'll see where it goes from here in the next couple games.
As we've been discussing, Barry, the decision to play Annunen more than usual lately is not an indictment of UC Saros, because Saros has been quite good as well.
Yeah,
Annunen has just been sensational, especially over the past week. But I have to imagine it can be difficult having those conversations with your number one goaltender at this time of the year especially. And I was hoping you could take us back to a similar situation in your coaching career.
In Washington.
Yes,
yeah.
precisely,
Well,
with Philip Grubauer and Braden Holtby.
Yeah, well, those are always tough conversations because those guys that are your number one, but they also get tired. I mean, you were there, Adam, and you know, Gruby was fresh. He got on a little bit of a heater. It's no different than a player. You always see guys get elevated on the wings when they get on a heater, or a centerman you get more ice time. So it doesn't. It's the same with a goaltender. You get on a little bit of heater, you get a little bit of a roll, you get more starts, and both goaltenders have been great. I mean, Juice and Eustace have been fantastic for us, and the coaches have, looked at everything and they said, we're going to maybe ride with a little bit of hotter hand, and you got to remember that the Juice not only has played almost the most games in the league as a goaltender, but he also went to the Olympics too, and he faces a lot of shots. We're not a team that is gifted that he gets 12 shots a night. That's not the case. So I think the coaches have thought this out. I can tell you this from if you know anything about Saros, he understands. He goes, I just want to get in, and there's no way that we could get in if it wasn't for the play of Juice. So he's all about the team, and he always has been and always will be. And it's no different. We rode Gruby into the. I'm talking about the Washington. I'm looking at Adam. We rode Gruby to get us in a position where we could get to the playoffs, and then once we did, it's a different animal once you reach the playoffs. And we lost 2 overtime games in Washington, going with Gruby, who's carrying us through about 15-20 game stretch there where he had unreal numbers. But the playoffs were different. And then we switched back to Holtby, and Holtz was used to that. He probably had a little chip on the shoulder too, and he came back, and lo and behold, he was the goaltender that we won a Stanley Cup with.
I do want to ask you about Annunen's play since the Olympic break, because we're focused on the game in Anaheim, the game against Minnesota over the weekend, but he's been one of the best goaltenders statistically since late February when the league restarted. Where have you seen, and Ben Vanderklok and Mitch Korn, where have you seen the biggest strides in Annunen's game, especially since the league started play up again?
I think the biggest thing is his calmness now. I think with a young goaltender, he seemed to be just sort of not nervous, but just trying so hard because he wanted to, establish himself as a true NHL backup, NHL goaltender, whatever form where he thought he was in his career. What I'm seeing is a guy that's very comfortable going, I'm a good goaltender right now, and I got UC Saros and me. I'm his backup, and I think he got comfortable with that, and then his game started to grow. And once you get to that point in your game and you get that confidence and that comfort level, I just think everything just slows down for you a little bit. Just like your first gig on the radio, you had some nerves, and
sure.
You had some breaks, and you had to work on a lot of your stuff. I remember that for sure. And now you're really poised.
Well, thank you, Barry.
Things have slowed down for you, and it's no different. So
I appreciate that.
I'm glad you were busy on the first ever Predator game, Barry. You're on the bench coaching a team, because that way you didn't hear me doing the first Predator game before handing it off to Pete and Terry. My pregame, I think, was a little rough.
Yeah, it's just like anything.
I hope we've destroyed the tape.
It's just like anything. I think you always hear this term. You become comfortable when it's a little bit uncomfortable, and I think that's part of what a player goes through, what a goaltender goes through, a defenseman, a broadcaster, all those things. So I just think that's where he is, and that's a fantastic place to be as a young player.
Well, thinking back too, Barry, you made the trade with a veteran goalie and Scott Wedgwood to get Justus Annunen, and I think all of you included, had the vision that he could be a guy that could take another step or two forward. And here we are just over a year later. It's starting to happen, and he's still only 26, and that's fairly young for a goalie, right? Goalies take a little longer before you get the final product.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you even look at the college goalies that come out. There's always a big college goalie that signs as a free agent, and usually you look and they're 24 years old, and then they're a couple years in the minors, and they work their way as a backup, and then finally to the NHL, and you find out they're 28 years old and they're an NHL rookie. So yeah, we saw a couple things with them. Obviously, we see the size, we saw the athleticism. Like if you look at Juice, he's he's pretty cut for a big man. His body type really reminds me of Olaf Kolzig. Big man, he's put together really well, fit, and is a good athlete.
Another guy I want to ask you about. You guys just signed Aiden Fink, another guy with a really interesting story behind him. I remember we were all sitting right here when Tom Fitzgerald stood up and traded you that last pick, and you guys picked Aiden Fink, and you don't really think anything of it. And then here he is. He's from the day he went on to college, he's been scoring all these points, and now he's in Milwaukee and doing well. And you guys just signed him today.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Aiden is, you take your swings, and I remember the draft. We got that pick. Went to Fitzy and said, "Hey, this makes a lot of sense for a lot of the emotional ties and connecting the dots with this franchise." And we took Aiden, and I remember they said this guy's a little bit undersized, but he seems to find a way to do it. Let's take a swing, a little bit of a swing in that last pick, and it's been a really good pick. Our scouts identified a talent. Probably a little bit undersized, undervalued by obviously where we got him. And he's come on and performed extremely well. You talk about laying some foundation for a really good university program. He was one of the centerpieces that has done that for Penn State, and has played extremely well. He went down and to the American Hockey League and lit it up there. So he's up here, and I think hopefully just being around, the Ryan O'Reillys and the Stamkoses and just the pro environment will be, because he's a really smart and enthusiastic young man that I think he'll really thrive and just being around. And so we're really excited to have him in the fold, and hopefully he's a Predator for a long time.
I'm glad you touched on Stamkos before, because it is an amazing story to get to 40, but you just hit on the point too that has the residual. It's not just what he's doing now, but we've talked about this in terms of Ryan O'Reilly, just the influence he's got to be having on all these. Like you guys said, you got 6 rookies on the roster right now, and they're watching him do what he's doing every day.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is that you can say what you want in any path that we've taken, but we've always talked about the cultural piece. We've always talked about how important it is to have someone lead the charge and show them the way, so that we've done it through this franchise. It started with Tom Fitzgerald by getting the right captain, the right leader to start a franchise. Expansion was a way different than it is now, and I can't imagine what it would look like without Fitzy those first couple of years. And then it sort of got passed on, and then the Shea Webbers, and pass it on to Roman's passing it on, and then you add pieces of guys that were captains on their own team, and Stamkos and cup winners, and you hope that rubs off, and I think it does. I really believe it does, and hopefully those things rub off so that we can win a cup here.
Barry Trotz is with us, Predators general manager here on DVD. When you ask any coach, GM, player at the beginning of the season what's going to define a successful season, they're probably all going to say the same thing: winning the Stanley Cup. And one team gets to say that at the end of the year. When you, barring whatever happens the rest of this week, kind of look at this season through all the up and downs as a whole, and your answer may change after the season, how do you define what's made this successful?
Well, I think I'm trying to remember what I said at the start of the year. I think someone, maybe you guys asked me where do I think we should be. I do remember talking about playing meaningful games at the end of the season, hopefully get in the playoffs, adding a lot of young talent you'll see, and letting them sort of start to develop in the National Hockey League. We've done that. So a lot of ways, no matter what happens right now, we're on par. Everybody wants to win the cup. Everybody wants to get to the playoffs, all that. But the success is going to become that I know our goaltending's strong. The success that I know that we got some young guys that are coming, and they're going to be good pieces for us going forward in the future. Our veterans are holding up at a really high level. For some of them that have some age to them, they're really still performing at a high level. So overall, if you would have said, "Hey, you're gonna play till game 81 or 82, whatever it is, and be in the playoff race," I would say I would have took that before the season, because I know we're in a transition type of situation where we're people are talking, are you doing a rebuild, or I'm almost calling it a remodel now, because that's where we are. We're getting younger. We're getting a little more exciting with some of our young guys. They're getting to perform. Guys like Woody, is starting to pop a little bit, and you're seeing the effect of guys like LaRue, and then Ryan Ufko. You see glimpses of what he might become. You look at our goaltending; it's going to be solid for the next few years. So, right now I would say that we set out with a plan, and the plan is sort of, the two timelines are sort of starting to match up, and we're going to get some more young kids in the draft, and we've got more young kids that are going to continue to develop and join the organization in the next couple of years. So I think the future is really bright, because this is a fantastic. We got lots to sell here. We got a great city. We got great ownership. I think we got a good. I think we're number 5 based on some reports in terms of our prospect pool. We weren't there 3 years ago. We weren't even close to that. Now we are. We've got, I think, 35 draft picks in the next 3 years, something like that. So the future's bright for continuing to build, or continuing to add pieces, or continue to have the assets to move things around to what you need. So we're gonna be building a new practice rink, which is exciting for the franchise. Those are things that are centerpieces for players to be here, and for development. I mean, all those things. I think our development staff, because we have so many young kids coming, we've put an emphasis on hiring more people in that area than others, because I just find that we trying to knock off one block at a time. The first block when I got here was, we got to restock the cupboards, and we're doing that, and there's other things that we wanted to add to the mix, and we're just knocking one brick at a time, and hopefully we knock enough bricks down that we build something really great in the future here.
When you were talking about goaltending earlier, and your time in Washington, and kind of that decision, you use the phrase riding the hot hand. Sometimes you'll hear that. How many times as a coach do you simply have to put numbers and stats and all that aside and just go on a gut feeling? And how have you kind of seen Bruno develop that more in the last few years as the head coach?
Yeah, I'm down there quite a bit. With the coaches, I try to stay pretty neutral. I just think it's just like anything. The more experiences you go through, the more hard decisions you have to make, the more tweaks that you have to make. What I liked about the coaching staff, and Bruno is no different than a player. The more experiences he has behind the bench, the more things that come in different forms, he's adding to his tool belt, and this is just another part of it. It's no different than Adam. No, we were trying to get into the playoffs, get in a good spot. Our goaltending was letting us down, and I had to make a hard decision. The Holtz was the guy, and we did that. And then you also have to not be stubborn too. We lose a couple games, we jump right back to Holtz, and I can tell Adam some stories that he doesn't know, where I was going to pull different goalies at certain times, and then and you hold off, and it works out. I mean, I thought about pulling a goaltender when we had a lead in a playoff game, because he was really struggling, and I didn't do it. Just certain circumstances played out. So these are the stories behind the scenes that the coaches have to talk about and have to make tough decisions. And but you go through that, and you don't sleep a lot. I'll tell you, you worry about the next game. You get all these decisions always sort of pick at you, and that's why the coaching part of it. It's easy it's easy on the back end when everything's said and done. It's easy to be an armchair quarterback. I can do that with any sport really, but you have to be in the mix.
Yeah.
And you have to be in the room, and you have to just know it's a feel. I know there's times, and I've talked about this, when you try to get a feel. I love the feel on the bench. You just knew which guys are the guys you can trust, which guys are the guys even on the opposition team, or that this guy's a player, and I'm sitting 600 feet from the ice level, and it's a harder feel. So, but it's easier up there. I got all the answers up there. But the coach part and the decision making. Trust me, to any fan, to any broadcaster, to anybody, I don't think that coaches make any decision without a lot of thought and a lot of checking the numbers and gut feeling and talking it over to nauseum at times. And then they have to make a decision, and they're judged on that decision. And we've all made poor decisions. I'm looking at Crispy right now, so so I know he's made a lot of good decisions, but he's also made a few bad ones. I've been a part of a couple of bad ones, I think. But it is something that's a challenge for every coach in the league.
Predators GM Barry Trotz has been our guest on D-Mace, Vingan, and Dominic. He joins us every week during hockey season. Barry, as always, a pleasure. Enjoy the game tonight. Good luck against the Sharks.
Thank you.
615-737-1025. We will react to what Barry had to say coming up next. We'll also preview tonight's matchup against the Sharks. Yet another big one for the local professional hockey team. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Adam Vingan, Chase McCabe, 1025 The Game. D-Mace, Vingan and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Chase McCabe, Adam Vingan here with you live at Bridgestone Arena. Willie Donick has left, well, not the building. He just left Barrel House. He went upstairs to prepare for the broadcast. Predators versus Sharks tonight. Puck drop at 7. Pre-game at 6 with Max High Maintenance Hers right here on 102.5 The Game. Have you heard that nickname?
I have.
Yes.
I may have used it a time or two.
He is.
We love Max.
We love Max. He's also high maintenance.
Yeah.
So let's set the stage, Chase, for tonight's game. The Predators enter tonight's game against the Sharks, 1 point out of the final wild card spot in the Western Conference with 86 points. The LA Kings have 87 points with a game in hand. So the Predators, of course, look, at this point, just keep winning.
Yeah.
Let's set the stage once again. Here is what would eliminate the Predators from playoff contention tonight. 2 things have to happen for that to happen. 1, the Predators have to lose to the Sharks in regulation. I should note that the Predators have won 15 consecutive games against the San Jose Sharks, which is the longest active winning streak for one franchise versus another franchise in the league. So, 1, the Predators would have to lose in regulation to the Sharks. Number 2, the LA Kings would have to defeat the Seattle Kraken in any fashion. Regulation, overtime, shootout, it doesn't matter. If those 2 things happen, the Predators lose in regulation and the Kings win, the Predators will be eliminated from playoff contention. So really, boil it down to its essence, Predators just have to win. But the big news surrounding this game, Justus Annunen is expected to start for the 3rd time in 4 games over a healthy UC Saros. That rarely happens, but Annunen has been nails over the past week. In the game at Anaheim last Tuesday and the game here at home against Minnesota on Saturday, combined, Justus Annunen has saved 8.7 goals above expected. He has stopped 26 of 27 shots from the inner slot, so right in front of the net. He has been one of the best goalies in the league since the Olympic break in late February. And Chase, this is something I emphasized with Barry, and I also emphasized in my conversation with Willie earlier in the program. This is not an indictment of UC Saros.
Sure.
Because UC Saros has also been one of the best goalies in the NHL since the Olympic break. He's been good. Annunen has been sensational. So I know a lot of you who are indifferent toward UC Saros.
Or want to make a narrative here.
Those of you who are indifferent toward UC Saros will use that to say, hey, see, they shouldn't have signed him. But Saros, analytically, has been one of the better goaltenders in the NHL since the Olympic break. Annunen has just been one of the best goaltenders since the Olympic break.
He's made the most of his opportunities. And I think, as the new GM or, however that's going to look comes in and looks at things, they know they're set on goaltending. And also, the coaching staff can look at this and think, all right, well, I don't have it right in front. How many games has Saros played this year? 60.
1 moment, please.
64, 65, something like that.
Saros has started 58 games,
Okay,
second
58.
most in the NHL, tie for second most in the NHL.
So, you can look at that and go, well, maybe next year, maybe we can drop that number down to 55 or 54 and give Annunen more starts because he's earned that right, earned that trust. I brought up the whole gut feel thing as a coach. I mean, to me, it's obvious. It's not an indictment on Saros. You ride the hot hand. Annunen has been the hot hand. So you play that and see what happens. And look, that's a decision that you're going to have to live and die by as a coach. But, I mean, do you remember covering the Stanley Cup final? Or wait, no, you weren't here yet, were you?
Yes, I was.
No, yeah, you were. The Stanley Cup final, and Peter Laviolette kept being asked, if he was going to make a goaltending
Because
change.
Pekka Rinne had some rough games in Pittsburgh to start that series.
And
there
Saros was the backup.
There were, I believe, 2 days off, 2 full days off between games 2 and 3 of that series. So that was the talking point.
Correct.
Between games 2 and 3. Will the Predators make a goaltending switch? And I don't mean to step on your toes here, but what I do remember is Pekka Rinne starts game 3, was outstanding.
Yep.
After the game, Peter Laviolette was, why would you guys even think that I would move away
Because
from
you were
you?
probably one asking him that too.
I probably was. I probably like it was never a thought in my mind to move away from Pekka Rinne
Right.
in the Stanley Cup final.
Right. And so I bring that up because that's the feel of the coach. Of it's almost like a pitcher in baseball of this guy's a stud. He's a Cy Young winner. He's going to work through this. So I'm going to leave him in there. I'm not going to take him out. And that's what Laviolette did. I think, in obviously different situations, but you sit here with your season on the line, I think you have two really good options. And that's so play the guy that's been just lights out lately and hope for the best and hope that you can keep winning. I mean, obviously that's really got to be the discussion in that locker room of, we can only control what we can control, and that is going out and winning these next 2 games.
Drew in Columbia says, what is the all-time consecutive win record for one franchise against another? I can tell you that, Drew in Columbia. The Montreal Canadiens defeated the Washington Capitals 23 consecutive times between October of 1974 and March of 1978. That was right when the Capitals entered the NHL.
Okay.
So the powerhouse Montreal Canadiens beat up on the expansion Washington Capitals. 23 consecutive wins between 1974 and 1978. The Predators are at 15 consecutive wins against the San Jose Sharks. Chase, I've said this before. This will show you how long it's been.
But it's like a 17-game point streak or something like that, right?
I can't recall that off the top of my head, but I will tell you the last time the Sharks defeated the Predators, I wasn't married and I didn't have 2 kids. That's how long it's been since the Sharks defeated the Predators. Now I am married and have 2 beautiful children. So, look, I know a lot of you are going to say, jinx, jinx, jinx. And if you want to call in tomorrow at 3 and complain and blame me if the Predators lose, I mean, I guess I've set myself up for that. But come on, guys, jinxes aren't real.
According to, this is what Preds PR has put out.
All right.
Nashville owns an 18-game point streak, 17-0-1 against San Jose that dates back to March 16th, 2019.
Okay, there you go.
So
that bodes well because the Predators need the points. Again, to avoid elimination tonight, the Predators cannot lose in regulation. And on top of that, the Kings cannot win in any fashion against Seattle. If those 2 things happen, unfortunately for the Predators, they will be eliminated from playoff contention. And as we've been saying, I just want to emphasize this. If not for UC Saros, Annunen too, the 2 of them together are the primary reason why the Predators are in this position. If not for the 2 of them combined, especially since the Olympic break, this game would be meaningless for the Predators.
Yep.
They would just be playing out the string. 2 more home games and then another year without the postseason. Between the 2 of them, they have combined for, if I do my math here very quickly, 19 quality starts in 23 tries. 19 out of 23, which means in 19 of the 23 games the Predators have played since the Olympic break, Annunen or Saros has saved more goals than expected. So goaltending is the reason. I mean, Steven Stamkos is a fabulous story, reaching 40 goals, I believe the 8th time in his career. A lot of contributions from young players, not taking away anything from all of that. It's goaltending. That's the reason why the Predators are here. So we'll see if Annunen can continue his hot streak tonight. He is expected to start 3rd time in 4 games. Annunen going in net for the Predators. 615-737.
I got a bold prediction for you tonight.
You want to do it now or on the other side?
I'll do it on the other side.
Let's do it on the other side. Yeah. Chase has a bold prediction. 615-737-1025. We'll take your reaction and wrap up the show coming up next. Chase McCabe, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. D-Mace, Vingan and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Chase McCabe and Adam Vingan here with you. Before we get back to the Predators, some sad news to report from Jim Wyatt of TennesseeTitans.com. Dave McGinnis, known affectionately as Coach Mac by most, has passed away. In McGinnis, the football world lost a man who never stopped coaching and encouraging, even though his role in the NFL changed in more recent years. The world and the Titans community lost a man who was a friend to many, always generous with his time, money, and stories. McGinnis died on Monday after an illness that first hospitalized him in early March. He was 74 years old.
Coach Mac was one of a kind. I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time with him just around here, but also, a couple of times at the Combine with Floyd and Jared. And Jared and I would sit back and, Jared would talk because, he's Jared. But we would sit back and listen to the stories that those two would tell and just be in awe because it was great. And, obviously Coach Mack was very close with Coach Fisher. I hate this. This one stings. Mike Keith mostly, and then Taylor Zarzour this past year, and just gutted, man, because Coach Mack's one of one. And I will tell this, when he first moved into the radio booth, because of his relationship with Floyd and Derek, and he would come on with us quite a bit, and then he got the full-time gig with Titans Radio and obviously became exclusive across the street, which we understood, but he was always great with his time. And whenever we would text him, and for those of you that have done this, he would reply back in emojis. That was him letting you know, yeah, I'm good, or whatever. But just truly an awesome person. And the Titans in Nashville have lost a good one. And so thoughts and prayers with his family.
Yes, we send our condolences to the family and friends of Dave McGinnis, who has passed at the age of 74. 615-7737, 1025. We've got some calls. Let's get to them now. Let's start with Mark on our phone line, driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Mark, thank you for calling and waiting. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Adam, I have a question on the playoff picture here.
Sure.
If the Predators win out and the Kings win out, can't the Predators still get in the playoffs if Minnesota and, of course, the Predators beat the Ducks? Because the Kings would then move into the third seed of the Pacific Division, and the Kings and Predators would be tied with 90 points each, but the Predators have more regulation wins, or would have more regulation wins than the Ducks, and would thus get in as the second wild card.
Thank you for the call, Mark. It is a little confusing, and tonight we'll clarify some things. But here's what I can tell you. The Predators have the tiebreaker over both the Kings and the Ducks. The number one tiebreaker, as Mark mentioned on the call, is regulation wins. The Predators are at 28, the Kings are at 21, and the Ducks are at 25. So if at any point the Predators finish tied with those two teams, the Predators will have the tiebreaker over those two teams. So, for example, let's say the Ducks, Kings, and Predators all finish with the same number of points.
Yeah.
The Ducks will win the tiebreaker against the Kings for third place in the Pacific, based on this scenario, and the Predators would win the tiebreaker against the Kings for the wild card spot. So, thank you for the call, Mark. There are a lot of different scenarios at play here, but the Predators are in a good spot in the sense that they do have the tiebreaker over both the Kings and the Ducks. Because look, there are only 5 teams remaining for 2 spots in the Western Conference. And one of those spots is not available to the Predators because they're not in the Pacific Division.
Right.
So, look, the Predators still face tough odds to make the playoffs. Again, they will be eliminated from playoff contention tonight if they lose in regulation and the Kings win in any fashion against the Kraken. And that game won't start until the Predators game is over because it's late night it's in Seattle, so it starts at 9:30 Central. I think that's right. Ugh, that's a late night. Anyway,
I know. I don't like those.
I'd rather go to bed.
You could say you'll be sleepless in Seattle.
Oh, well, yeah.
Come on, David. No,
I had
that
to.
was
Sorry, guys.
good. All right, you ready for my bold prediction?
Yes, let's hear that bold prediction.
So, a stat.
Yes.
Philip Forsberg has the most points versus San Jose in franchise history with 41.
Okay.
18 goals and 23 assists. He has done that in 31 career games
All right.
against the San Jose Sharks. Here's the bold prediction. Hats on the ice tonight for number 9.
Oh,
Calling it.
That
I'm
is
calling it.
That is a bold
Max Hers,
prediction.
pay attention to that. Hat trick for Philip Forsberg tonight.
We will see if that does come true
You
fruition.
like that? That's bold.
That is bold. You weren't lying.
And that would give
bold.
him now Steven Stamkos could also score, but if he does not, that would give him 41. And
it would be the second time if Forsberg reaches 40. It would be the second time in franchise history that the Predators have had 2 40-goal scorers in the same season. Back in 2022, it was Forsberg and Matthew Shane with 40 goals apiece. There was a time.
22 or 23? 20. You may be right. I think it was 22. Yeah, I think you're right.
There was a time where the Predators were the only active franchise without a 40-goal scorer in its history. And I did not include Vegas in that because they were brand new. And I believe Vegas had a 40-goal scorer before the Predators did.
21-22.
Okay.
So Philip had 42.
All right. So we'll see. I mean,
69 games, too.
Look, what Barry was saying about Steven Stamkos is absolutely true. Steven Stamkos had, I believe, 4 goals in his first 22 games of the season. Since November 26th, which is really where the Predator season turned around, he's got 36 goals in 58 games. The only 2 players with more goals since that date are Cole Caulfield, who has 51, and Connor McDavid. So Steven Stamkos, over a full 82 games, over his past 58 games, is scoring at a pace of 51 goals over a full season. So hats off, no pun intended there, to Steven Stamkos because, look, when he had 4 goals through 22 games, I wasn't expecting him to reach 40. So he reinvented his game. He started going right to the front of the net, scored a ton of goals from right in front of the crease, and that helped him get to this point. So, kudos to Steven Stamkos for changing things up, even for someone who is going to be enshrined in the Hockey Hall of Fame when his career is over. Even at this stage of his career, he made some changes, and they paid off handsomely, and we'll see if he can continue to score tonight. But once again, the big story, Justus Annunen expected to start in net for the Predators.
Can I make a quick comment on what
Of
you
course.
just said? Going to be enshrined in the Hockey Hall of Fame.
For sure.
We knew that when he signed. Here.
Yes.
That was going to happen.
If he would have retired instead of signing with the Predators, he would be going to the Hockey Hall of Fame.
What I am very glad to see is that even though obviously, 98% of that time is going to be Tampa Bay and recognizes Tampa Bay.
Yes.
You're going to look and go, okay, well, his time in Nashville was still pretty good because of what he's done this year.
Yes. And
which
look,
it wasn't looking that way for a while.
well,
so that's what
remember,
I'm saying.
I wasn't here. You were. But remember when Paul Kariya played for the Predators?
Yes.
Peter Forsberg briefly played for the Predators. It's cool when one of the greatest players of his generation is wearing your team's uniform, even if it wasn't the uniform he is most commonly associated with, because Paul Kariya holds a lot of. I believe he doesn't hold the all-time scoring record anymore, does he?
No, Forsberg or Yossi has that now.
Right. But for a long time, Paul Kariya had the highest single-season point total in franchise history. And when people think of Paul Kariya, they don't think of the Nashville Predators. They think of the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim. But it's still cool for Predators fans that Paul Kariya played a part of this franchise.
Sure.
And who knows how long Steven Stamkos will be here. I mean, he's got 2 more years on his contract after this one.
I'd keep him right now.
I mean, I look, at the trade deadline,
I know you were probably you wanted to trade everybody probably.
Not necessarily everybody. I was disappointed that they didn't trade Ryan O'Reilly at the deadline. I definitely was. And look, there will be second guessing if the Predators.
So you don't let Arlo listen to Mac and Cheese because of that?
You know, I haven't played Mac and Cheese for Arlo yet. I should probably do that. I bet he would like that.
Yeah.
I bet he would like that. Maybe I'll do that when I get home.
There you go.
So, anyway, we'll see if the Predators can keep it going tonight again against the San Jose Sharks. I'm going to say it one more time, and I'm sorry for those of you who believe in jinxes. 15 consecutive wins for the Predators against the Sharks, and they need to make it 16. Because if they do, they are still alive in the Western Conference playoff race. A loss in regulation tonight for the Predators, a win by the Kings later tonight in Seattle, and the Predators will be eliminated from playoff contention. The Predators 4-1-1 in the month of April, looking to make it 5-1-1. Chase, any final thoughts, predictions for tonight's game?
Well, I gave my big one.
You did?
Hat trick for Forsberg. I'm calling it, which would be, how many in his career? He's had a ton.
I'll have to look that up.
Sorry. You're my stat guy.
I know.
No, I just keep playing the way you've been playing and get these wins. I mean, that's really all you can do. We'll have a lot of time to break down and do the breakdown of the season and all of that. But considering where they once were at the start of this year to where they are now, fighting for a playoff spot at the very end, it's like Barry Trotz said, playing meaningful games in April. That's pretty remarkable. So let's just see.
615. Oh, no, there's no more time for calls. There's no more time for calls. I mean, you can
call a pregame show.
You can call the pregame show. I don't know if Max has ever taken a live call, but maybe you could try at 615-737-1025. That'll do it for us today. We'll be back in full force tomorrow. I appreciate Chase McCabe for pulling double duty. 5 hours of radio for Chase McCabe today.
Max, you need me now too? I mean, I'm rolling. So
Max is fine. He's fine. High maintenance hers over here. We will be back in full force tomorrow. Willie Donick, Derek Mason. Hopefully he made it back from the mountains. I guess we'll all find out at 3 o'clock. Hopefully he wasn't eaten by a bear. But that'll do it for us. We will be back tomorrow to react to this game and more, starting at 3 p.m. And on behalf of Derek Mason, who's not here to save us, be loved, love on your people. Have a wonderful rest of your Monday. Enjoy the Predators game tonight. We'll talk to you 3 p.m. tomorrow from the station. Peace.